and welcome to another big edition of In the Back Pocket as we continue to work our way through 2026. Two-time All-Australian Nathan Brown is alongside me. Champion Data's Daniel Hoyne and Mr. 21.2 on the Sportsbet.
Yes,
Joshy Jenkins. Hello, JJ.
Yes, I can't wait for another weekend of footy. It's another bye-impacted round of footy, but look, we just do the best we can with what we've got. And on the back of last week, boys, with our best bets, it was painless and then painful. That's how I'd describe it.
The punt is a roller coaster. So,
it is.
You know, what comes down must come up. That's what we're hoping for anyway, Brownie.
So Dylan Stephens, never again. Never again for Dylan.
I'm surprised you weren't there to begin with anyway.
Well, I tell you what, he had about 10 touches in 12 minutes and then refused to go near the football anywhere for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I got a bit carried away with the total points in the Adelaide Bulldogs game, but that's okay. We've got an opportunity to bounce back this weekend, JJ. So you think that a Freo midfielder can do exactly that?
Yes, well, this worked out for me with Andrew Brayshaw last week. Off a poor game, was able to bounce back, have 39. So Caleb Serong, now we're on weather watch for this game. It shouldn't impact Serong. In fact, if it's wet and slippery and a little bit rainy, it should help him. No tag, he's prolific. 7 times last year he went over 35 plus. I wasn't brave enough to do that. But I just think he's able to get his hands on the footy. He was held really well last week against Tolstrup. I think he bounces back in a big, big way, and I'm keen on him 30 plus.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Richmond will tag him either, so he'll get the run of the game along with Brayshaw. For me, it is Finn Callaghan under the roof against Collingwood. I don't think Collingwood tag. In saying that, he's likely to be the one tagged if they do, but I don't see them tagging. I think going head-to-head through the middle of the ground, under the roof, pace on the game. Finn Callaghan, 27 plus.
I'll be surprised if they do tag Collingwood. I think that was just a bit of a one-off against someone like Nasiah, who you know that if you're going to go after him, he struggles to handle it at the moment in his young stage within his career. I think they like to use Perryman in a range of different positions to help their system. So I'll be surprised if they go after him Friday
night.
Good news.
Yeah, well, if they do, I'd be very surprised if they tag Clayton Oliver. So I'm with you, Brownie, hoping that the Giants mids can get their hands on the football. They haven't been able to score, but both Callaghan and Oliver have both been able to get their hands on the pill. And Clayton Oliver's got a great record against Collingwood. So the last 8 times he's played against them, he's cleared that line that the traders have put up. And he's also got over 30 touches on 7 of the last 8 occasions. So he likes playing against Collingwood. He's finding his groove at the Giants, and he had 33 last week. So I don't think he'll be stopping and slowing down this week. Clayton Oliver.
He's covering the ground. That's the important thing, because the risk with him this year was that the game might get a bit quick for him. Now, I mean, you can have your opinion on whether he's helping them or whether he's neither here nor there. But what he is doing is covering the ground just well enough to stay involved in general play.
You can see when players look fit. Like you look at Clayton Oliver this year and he looks fit. You look at Jake Stringer and he looks fit compared to other years. There's a few players that come in and they are a little bit big around here, and you can tell those jumpers leave nothing to the imagination. They are skin tight, and you look at Clayton Oliver, he's a lot fitter than what he was last year.
And the other thing about Clayton so far is he's able to actually impact the scoreboard, both himself, but been able to actually set up some teammates on the scoreboard as well. So there's not too much junk in his game at the moment. So he started the season really well.
Yeah. What about under the roof? So interesting. This game is not at the MCG; it's at Marvel Stadium. Does it make it a little bit more puntable, Brownie?
Absolutely. I think it's a really good punting game. So you've got the Collingwood players through the midfield. You've got Josh Dacos, you've got Houston at half-back. The Collingwood forwards, I'll get into them in a little bit, but you've also got the half-backs at the Giants who should 39 to Ash last week. Lockie Whitfield takes a kick out. So I think this is a great game to punt on. Under the roof, no weather, so you pretty much know what you're going to get. I think it's a ripper.
You referenced the Collingwood forwards. It's a big week. We don't even know necessarily yet which ones they're going to pick and which ones they aren't. Craig McRae, the most pointed he's been about a specific group of players in his press conference last week or the week before. No Taylor, no Buckley, are probably the best tandem of key defenders. So yes, your guys like Membry and McStay and Buller aren't firing, Brownie, but they're not going to get a better opportunity.
Couldn't get a better opportunity to kick 3 goals, and they're all a big price because they don't do it. Jamie Elliott is a smaller forward. He probably gets Fonte in this game. But, I mean, Dan McStay, Tim Membry, I look at going forward for Collingwood. Can they play all of them? I don't think they can. So this is a huge thing for Craig McRae to look at. Okay, who can do it when we need it done? And that is in this game. And I think one of these players has a breakout game and one probably not there next week.
The one that was the most reliable to me, I think, might be Jordan De Goey. I know they're still flirting with him, Hoyney, as a come-up sort of half-forward, do some CBAs and get forward. I wonder whether he's their best avenue to goal.
The one for me that I'll be worried about might actually be Jordan, because behind the footy for GWS, it will be around Connor Idun and his ability to be able to shut down and lock away on the opposition's best forwards. And I would have thought, looking at that list, if I'm GWS, the biggest threat to me, and I'm agreeing with you there, is Jordan De Goey. So I'm sending him straight to Jordan De Goey, Joe Fonte straight to Jamie Elliott. And with all due respect to those Collingwood key forwards, I'm not really threatened by them too much. So I'm leaving that to Laverty and perhaps whoever else they bring in. But Elliott and De Goey are the two that should be front of mind. Really good player, and offers a lot offensively as well. So
bit of an issue for the Giants as well is they have not been able to score the last couple of weeks. They got on a bit of a roll against St Kilda late in the piece when they got some momentum, but they are just struggling to move the ball forward with any real connection.
The other mob can't score either. Collingwood don't score the footy either. They're, and we saw why, personnel, but some of it has to be system. I think their system needs a bit of work. Last year they wanted to go slow and boundary, which made them the number one defensive team in the competition. But the game has really evolved away from that in terms of you've got to be able to attack with a bit of speed. They've got guys like the Dacos boys who can move the footy and kick the ball and cut the game open. Just a bit of a watch whether they've, I guess from the coach's box, they want to go down that path.
They play a great deal at Marvel Stadium as well, so that'll be interesting, and some key inclusions for them as well. That's why I like the Pies at the line. I think there's a great opportunity to have a bet there head-to-head. And
it's already moved that line too.
Yeah, out from around 10.5 to 13.5.
Yep.
So wouldn't be surprised if it keeps moving, to be
There's
honest.
joy to be had at half-back in this game, at either end. So first of all, Collingwood, you've got Josh Dacos, who's in great form, takes the kick-outs. Dan Houston, I think they've figured out how to play him. He's had average 30 in his first two, and you look up the other end, and you've obviously got Ash and Whitfield. But I like the Collingwood players because they've still got a little bit of value around that 27, 28 market. The GWS Giants players, you need to be at 30, 31, 32. So happy to take the two Collingwood players. I'll put them both in a multi, both at 26 plus.
And I took Scotty Puntability on a couple of weeks ago. I'm with him. I'm back in his corner here. I think in a really important game, his game time actually went up from opening round to round one, so they played him a little bit more. I mean, he's a competitor. Don't tell me he's not sitting there saying, I'm ready. I think they'll use him as more of a permanent midfielder in this game. I think he'll play 75% of the game, and for that reason, I'm happy to play him at sort of 20, 21, 22 disposals, which is what he did better than in that first contest.
Can the Giants' forward woes be helped by maybe moving Toby Greene around a little bit more here and using him more inside 50, JJ?
I'd move him. He's not the difference maker around the ball that he might have been 5 years ago if they made this move. A lot of his disposals are hacks and rush kicks forward and handballs forward to no one really. So without, some potency from Stringer and Hogan, I'd be moving him forward.
I was excited about this move at the start of the season, with the talk around him getting some more midfield time. And we're only 3 games into their season, but what he's been able to dish up so far as a midfielder, this is extrapolated out to per 100 minutes. And that's really not getting the job done. I mean, they would have been hoping that he would have been able to hit the scoreboard as a midfield type this year. Hasn't actually kicked a goal playing midfield minutes this year.
That's the biggest thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's such a weapon when he's around the goals. If you're not going to get that out of him as a midfielder, you've got to use him forward.
Yep, so I'm getting him out there. I'm leaving this to Callaghan and to Oliver, and then getting some others in there. Hopefully Brent Daniels is back for him as well, who could play some midfield minutes, but I'm getting Toby more back into the forward 50. If I'm Craig McRae, I don't want to see Toby Greene inside forward 50. I'd rather see him up the ground. So that's what I'll be doing if I'm GWS this week.
All right, how are we playing a multi, Brownie?
So the multi centres around the 3 players I've spoken about. I've got Josh Dacos, I've got Finn Callaghan, and I've also got Dan Houston. But smaller percentages here, so under 25. This is what I call the sweet spot multi. Yes. So the new markets at Sportsbet, you can back 21, 22, 23s, 24. So I've gone 24 for all of them. I think it's a barrier, that 25 market. So I'm happy to bring it down to 24 each and you get the price up. Look, you can back them all at 26, 27. I think they cover that. But for a safety one, I've gone 24s.
Yeah, I like it. Expect Collingwood to get the footy in Josh Dacos and Dan Houston's hands off the back of what you said, JJ, with their inability to move the footy. That's how they'll get the job done if the ball is in their hands.
All right, well, I like the Pies. Is anyone sensing an upset here?
No, I like the Pies at the line as well.
I think GWS are a chance.
Yeah, so do I. If the line gets out to 3 goals, I'll be on the Giants.
All right, well, enjoy the footy. We'll see you in a bit on In the Back Pocket. Welcome back to In the Back Pocket. It's great to have your company. Matt Nevett is my name. Nathan Brown, Daniel Hoyne and Josh Jenkins are alongside me, and it's time for Tag Watch. All right, we're going to put the focus on a relatively new tagger in Carlton Tolstrup from the Demons, who's done it 2 weeks in a row to relatively good effect in terms of his role. And Stephen King did say after the game on Saturday night that it's a role they might continue to use for him.
Well, they should. They should, because, I mean, if he's not going to tag, it's a bit of a TBC on what he is as a player. He's played a bit of half forward, bit of wing. You know, not necessarily sure where he fits in, but if you can play this role, and look, Sam Walsh, from a physical perspective, is a great matchup for him.
Absolutely. If he's able to look after Sam Walsh on Sunday, I think I'll be very surprised if Carlton are actually able to get this job done. The importance of Sam Walsh to this footy club, and this isn't just recently, this has been over years. He is clearly their most important player. What he does in wins compared to losses, we saw the opening round game. These first 45 minutes against Sydney, he was unbelievable. They're leading that game by best part of 3 goals, 4 goals. Then James Jordan goes for him and the whole thing flipped. And, you think back to the back end of the 2023 campaign for Carlton where they got on that roll. Sam Walsh, top 10 player in the competition. If he is able to be shut down on Sunday, like I said, Melbourne should go a long way to winning this game.
Anyone that you think maybe is going to get tagged, I think you step around in a betting sense, or maybe even take the unders. I don't think he goes to Jagger Smith. I think those two are the only two dynamic players in the list. I think Paddy Cripps is the one. Then you might go Sam Walsh unders, and you might go Paddy Cripps overs.
Yeah, it's just. I suppose the only interesting with the Melbourne side there is that they didn't have Tolstrup at centre bounce in the first round. They used him more in centre bounce, and it may have hurt their ball movement a little bit. They were dominated at clearance. So, but I agree with you. If there's a question mark, it's a good one to step around.
Still tag. Jordan tags really effectively from outside the centre bounce. The Swans want to use their guns, Hoyney, Warner, and Goulden around the footy. So you can still get it done from outside the centre square. The risk is, of course, Walsh gets 1 or 2 before the tag.
He's a bit more experienced though, James Jordan. So you got Carlton, who hasn't played a lot of football. I think James Jordan handles that situation a little bit better.
You labelled Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller the worst player to punt on last week after being the best last year, JJ. Is he back? Should we be getting back on Naz?
I'm not willing to be... I don't want to get involved in him until I know he's going to spend more time at half-back, because it's just an easier place for him to get the footy. And last year, I mean, he would have taken a lot of kickouts. I know he's sharing them with Sinclair, but last year, the 1-2s that you can get at half-back, and we've seen him try and force that on occasion. He's been playing mid and forward, and then he's not getting the footy, so he's going behind the ball, takes a kick out against Melbourne. They tried to force it, and the ball was ended up getting handballed out of bounds. Berry's not a great matchup for him. He doesn't quite have the elusiveness to go with him, but he's certainly got the running power and the diligence to get it done.
All right, well, the kiss of death this week. It's a nice little segue into this game. Just a bit of love for the kiss of death as well.
Got it done?
We got it done last week with the Saints, who knocked off the Giants at 270. Not as confident this week. I found it a difficult week to tip an upset, but I thought the odds should be a lot closer here. The Saints back at home. They've got their groove going. And still some question marks early on in the season around the lines, and they're obviously missing some key personnel. So at 263, I've got a slight leaning to the lines, but from a betting point of view, there's some value there with St Kilda.
Never a better time to play them than this week for St Kilda,
I just wonder whether they might have poked the Brisbane Bear, though, the Saints, because they've been talking all summer about Brisbane and their academy and the free kicks. I just wonder whether they might have just poked them a little bit too much, and the Lions might come out.
Do they care
snarling.
Do we care enough in football that...
Well, we might not.
The two-time reigning premiership, do you bother what St Kilda, who have been low over the last couple of years, do you bother what they say?
I wouldn't. And
wouldn't
we
take
don't.
her off the ball, would you?
I don't know. It just might be something that just... when you are the two-time defending champs, you might be looking for a little bit of outside motivation.
They do have some handy ins, though, this week, Brisbane. I know that they are still missing a couple, but Zach Bailey coming in and Darcy Gardner coming in as well. And I don't think they were as bad in the second half of the game, Brisbane, as what they were to begin the game with a couple of weeks ago. So,
how do the Saints handle Bailey?
Well, they haven't handled him well in the past couple. He's 20-3 on average, or 22-3 on average against them. So the thing with Bailey is he's a rare player where I don't think you necessarily need to know if he's going to play more forward or more mid, because he does enough of both. When he's playing mid, he's so quick to get downhill and sniff a goal-kicking opportunity. Now, he can spray them, but he does hit the scoreboard regularly. And when he's playing half forward, he always comes up, and they always want to get him involved in the game, particularly if they're struggling around the footy. So I think you can play Bailey disposals and goals with a fair bit of confidence.
Outside of punting, they're reportedly around the 1.6 million mark for Bailey. Is he worth that?
Well, maybe not, but you're worth what someone writes on a piece of paper and hands to you. So he is a very dynamic player, and I think if he was a full-time midfielder, he might be worth that.
I would expect him to play a lot more midfield minutes this week off the back of McCluggage not being there. And I think, we saw when Lachie Neale went out towards the back end of last year that he got more, centre bounce time. Grand final day, I thought he was almost the most influential player on the ground, despite being really inaccurate in front of goal by playing a lot of centre bounce midfield minutes that day as well. So they do like to revolve their centre bounce mix around the four of them, and usually that's Will Ashcroft, McCluggage, Dunkley and Neale. One of them's not there. I would expect that replacement to be Zach Bailey.
The other one, overs on Zach Bailey.
I reckon he's every chance to go bananas.
And the other one they might want to include a bit more is Rayner. He hasn't necessarily last year, a lot of quiet first halves and then would explode in the second half. He's just sort of been going maybe 5, 6 out of 10, so I wouldn't surprise to see him play a little bit more around the ball, and Dunkley's been that one spitting forward. So I was keen to take Dunkley on this.
You just can't trust Rayner with his numbers. He's too up and down from a disposal point of view, so he's not a punting proposition for me. In terms of goals, so we're looking at Zach Bailey disposals, overs potentially. Charlie Cameron, have you enjoyed what you've seen from him to start the season?
Absolutely. He looks cherry ripe this season. I mean, his previous 2 campaigns were pretty, below standard for him. His grand final last year was unbelievable, and it looks like that he's carried that form on into this year. So, kicking those 6 goals already in 2 weeks. He's winning the ball as well for Charlie. So he's been able to get up and down the ground. His ability to be able to apply pressure on the opposition. He looks fit. He looks invested. And when you're looking at St Kilda behind the footy, there's not really an absolute ideal matchup, I don't think, for Charlie, which, to me, spells some trouble there for St Kilda and hopefully some positive returns there for Brisbane.
Where can we as punters cash in on some of the weaknesses that the Saints have?
Well, it's not so much a weakness, it's how they play. So St Kilda push their half forwards up and they're extra on ballers. So historically, halfback flankers have always done really well against St Kilda, and this is no different this year. Houston and Dacos, big numbers. Christian Salem, that mightn't look like a big number, but that was the most for Melbourne on the day. And then Lachie Ash, 39 last week. So I'm looking at Jasper Fletcher. He plays a little bit of wing as well, but they always give me a good line on Jasper Fletcher, and he's always good value, and he very rarely smashes that line, but he's always around the 22, 23, 24 mark. And the only other one is Dane Zorko, 30 plus touches.
What are you doing here
off half-back,
that's a high number.
Kick-outs.
It's a big number.
Dane Zorko, he gets big numbers. And you watch him slink around the back against St Kilda with nobody going anywhere near him, taking the kick-outs. He's one of my favourites, Dane Zorko. One of my favourites to punt on. Like, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but I love him.
He's my cup of tea. The thing about Zorko is, often we can have a bit of a laugh, and Merritt copped a bit of criticism last week about players who run around the back. I want Dane Zorko to run around the back because I want him with the ball in his hand from a punting perspective, but from a football perspective as well.
If he goes over, that is huge trouble for St Kilda.
They'll be winning the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you saw the numbers, 36 to Dacos, 39 to Ash. So they allow it.
Hey, without data, you're just a flawed with an opinion.
Yeah,
that is right. That's good. I'm going to use that.
Hey, it was a good opinion that he had last week, because I'm sure this is the first time this has ever been written on a rundown. Ben Miller highlights package. So let's take a look at it. Brownie, your man.
I brought to the table last week that this guy is now taking some of the kick-outs. He took 4 the week before. He's actually a pretty good kick of the football, which you don't think, because he's very robotic. But 6 games in a row, he'd had more than 12 plus disposals. So I said, it's not a bet, it's not an outright bet. It's one to put into your same game multis. And lo and behold, what did he get? 12 touches.
Perfect 12.
Benny Miller,
Had
back
7
him again.
kicked on him. We don't care about that. It's
Could
about
not care less. Could not care less. Josh Tracy might kick 4 on him this week. You back Josh Tracy and you back Ben Miller for 12.
I love it.
As long as we see that green tick. I tell you, I'm doubling down on a pre-season bet that I had, team. I reckon the Freo Dockers are just about the team to beat right now, and you're getting $11 still for them. I think they're just going to continue to trim up as the weeks go by. I know they only beat Melbourne last week, but it was the way they did it in the first quarter. They absolutely took the game away from the Demons with the way that they moved the football, and then with their weapons, particularly inside 50. Josh Tracy is he's a serious player, and I think they're going to go a long, long way. $11. Happy to bet again.
I think when we're looking at the premiership market, I think it's, the wins and losses sometimes aren't the absolute be-all and end-all. It's how you play, and how you play will eventually look after the end result. I'm fascinated with Justin Longmuir's commentary around their first quarters and wanting to throw a punch and actually not going in just with our gloves up and we're going to hold. Now, this year we're actually going to go after you, we're going to go in swinging. And that mindset with the talent that they have, we spoke about it in the pre-season. If they have a change of ball movement method and a change of mindset, they've got the talent to go with that. Now, their offensive ability and their ability to be able to just go whack within a 30-minute period, they haven't done that under Justin Longmuir before. So they pose a significant threat this year.
Collingwood style of players, isn't it? Like opening it up when you need to for a 20, 30-minute period and then pulling back when you're in front.
Yeah, no, it is. So they want to go slow with the footy. They just, they're happy to hold and then they go long to contest and then they get speed off that with their elite talent at ground level.
And with the wildcard rounds coming in this year, finishing top 4 is going to be more important than ever. So ensuring that you kill off those sides that you should, like Melbourne last week, with that style of game, you'd think that's going to suit and help. So I think they're a great battle.
Yeah, even top 2 for them, so they don't have to get on a plane first week of the finals. A guy who can help them and can be someone who's a bit of a difference maker around the ball is Hayden Young. Hasn't been there. Murphy Reid stepping up. Good things happen every time this young man gets the footy. He's not a penetrating kick. He's not electric with his speed, but he's creative. He knows where the space is. And I loved his game last week. I like him, particularly 21, 22, 23. You're getting closer to $2 for those numbers.
Are you backing that outright or is that into a Saturday
That'd be an
multi?
SGM play. I'd back him outright for 22, 23, 24. He had those numbers last week. He's, again, not a lot of CBA, but sometimes it's not all about the players that are getting the centre bounce attendance. It's where are the half forwards in general play. There's so much more general play than there are centre bounces, and he's around the footy a lot. Serong's the other one I'm keen to play, and I'm keen to have a bit of a go at Serong to go really big. 7 times last year he had 35 or more. I'm sensing one of those games where Serong can link up with Brayshaw and Reid and have 32, 34, 35 disposals.
All right, so Luke Jackson for me this week. Now, I've got a theory that obviously Nankervis is out, so they're going to have a young ruckman on board. But they're looking at Sean Darcy and he hasn't really hit the ground running. So they'd look at Richmond and go, OK, we probably think we're going to win this game. So maybe Sean Darcy spends more time as the number 1 ruckman. Yes, I think Jackson will roll through there, but I think if it's a 70-30 split, Jackson spends a little bit more time either playing as midfielder or playing forward. And then the wet does come into it, but I think he's a really good price for 2+ goals. I think it's $3.40, something like that. So I just feel like he hits the scoreboard against a younger opponent this week.
Don't mind it. He's a very capable forward when he does spend time down there. That line 48.5, I would have been keen on the Dockers to clear that, but the weather has just got me.
Weather watch, yes.
A bit of cold feet there, so I'll stay out. Can you believe it? North Melbourne were the most punted on team last week.
Punters love Sunday night footy. It's unbelievable.
Well, they weren't loving it at around 9 o'clock.
Maybe they were back on the line and Dylan Stevens. But this is a game, this is an F. This is an F game. I look at this and how
F
could
for
you
quality
trust...
or F for puntability?
Both. And another word for it. How could you back North Melbourne in anything now that you saw last week? How could you back the Bombers in anything? And then I go to their players who you probably back and know they're going to get the football. There's no value in Sheasel. There's hardly any value in Merritt. And there's just 2 sides that I cannot trust, cannot back. Game time's down on a few of them, so I just give it an F. I know that you blokes have found something, but I'm happy to put my wallet away and just say there's no way I'm wasting my punters' money on this one.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. We interviewed Dean Solomon before the footy on the weekend, and I mean, he probably shouldn't have, but he conceded they made a mistake with their 23rd player. So the club's trying to figure out what to do, and some of their best players just got stuck on the bench for too long. Archie Roberts was one of those players. They wanted
61% the week before.
Yeah, so up to 88, I think it was last week. So he was clearly one they identified, and I reckon if he's going to play 88%, he'll be going over 23.5. So he's one I like. Conversely, I want to take Jai Simpkin on. I just think, and Caleb Daniel's the other one, if he's going to play ahead of the footy, and Daniel is one where you just need to listen and see what information is around, take him on if he's going to play forward. But Simpkin's not prioritised as a midfielder. That's a midfield number, so I'll take him on.
Yeah, the only angle I could really find here was Caldwell to get his hands on the ball. I think there's no way they're going to give him less midfield minutes based on what he's done so far, and 25 plus. Roll that into the Saints head-to-head, who I think are the value, and that'll be my multi. It's a low-staking multi, but my Saturday play. How is the Brownlow looking?
Well, the biggest news is Christian Petrarca is out of the, not out of the Brownlow, but he's out to $34 into 26 now. So Marcus Bontempelli, I've got him voting in every game. Nick Dacos didn't vote last week, obviously didn't play. Jack Gunston, I've got him in for a couple of twos, and then obviously there's a lot of players that have only played 2 games, so it's very spread out at the moment when you look at that. I still think Max Holmes at $34 is a pretty good bet. So too Ed Richards, he's going to get a lot. Zach Butters, I thought, was the clear 3 votes last week. Max Gawn the week before. So at the moment, Christian Petrarca came into about $5, out to 34, into 26. How long does he stay out?
Toys out of the cot stuff for me with Petrarca's injury. I thought I'd found one, 51 all the way into second or third favourite. Hands in the air, got no idea.
Stiff. New favourite as well. Marcus Bontempelli at $3 tops that list. I reckon there's a few there at odds that you could start to play now. It's only a couple of rounds into the season. It's an absolute marathon. So Nasai's got out to $34. Might be worth a little play if he gets rolled.
Ed Richards at $41. I'm still with you.
We'll be back in a bit here on In the Back Pocket. Welcome back to In the Back Pocket. Great to have your company. Matt Nevett is my name. Nathan Brown, Daniel Hoyne and Josh Jenkins are alongside me. And one thing we love, team, is the Sportsbet feed and the fact that the punter, the ordinary punter, can get involved, throw their bets up, and we can give some feedback. So let's do that. Let's have a look at this one. It looks like a Melbourne supporter. Thinks they're going to finish in the top 6. That's probably getting a little carried away.
That is a Melbourne supporter.
Yeah. Not a big surprise.
I'm out of that one.
One copy on that one. Not a huge surprise. So
back to reality for
here we go. Oh, this is up my alley.
Yes.
So the Eagles, yes. Now this bet was placed before they got the job done over the Roos. So that's a setback because, look, the wooden spoon is only going to probably win 2 or 3. So the Eagles get a key win there. And Josh Tracy might be some value for the Coleman.
He's very consistent.
I think the Eagles now are a bet in that market.
Yep,
You're getting $5 plus, so it's a good chance to get involved. It's only one win that they've got on the board. In fact, $6. So I'm happy to follow you in now, JJ. We're getting a better price. Brownie Streakers segment. Let's have a look how he went last week.
Dylan Stephens is my best bet across the whole round at 21 touches this week. So all I'm asking for Dylan is 16.
Stephens, Parker, Stephens. It's close to the boundary line. Stephens kept it in. Across the face of goal, and Stephens. An all-important mark late in this term.
He didn't quite go on with it, poor old Dylan, but he did get it up for 16 touches. So here the rules are, we started with 100, or I started with 100, and I'm rolling the total into every bet. So we're up to 183, so 183 goes into Port Adelaide, just a plain head-to-head. The rules are everything has to be over a minimum of $1.20, so at $1.27 or $1.23 yesterday, so they're drifting out a bit. So all the 183 goes on Port Adelaide head-to-head. Disappointed that Rosie's out and Bergman, so a couple out, but at home, I feel like they should get the job. That doesn't matter if they win by 1 or 101. They just need to win.
How nervous were you last week?
I was angry more than anything. Angry? Yeah, because he got about 12 touches in the space of 13 minutes and I thought, he's home here. And then for some reason, he had 9 minutes on the bench in the last quarter at one point. And you're like, come, get him on.
So if they win and they win big, who dines out on the Eagles? Is it Georgiades?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think he's
the only one that can.
Yeah, he's the key forward. 3 goals, 5 last time. I mean, left some on the table.
Kicked 6 in the pre-season game against them as well.
He does get prone in games to spray a few. I mean, he kicked 60 goals last year, but he can spray a few from time to time. $8.50 for 6 plus. I mean, ordinarily you're wanting double figures, but he's going to get opportunities. The difference about Georgiades as a key forward, he's not super big. He's sort of the Charlie Curnow mould, 6'3", but explosive on the lead. So he's the key forward who could really have a big day.
So at the other end, Port Adelaide, you've been able to kick goals in key forwards against them as well. So you go back to round 1 and they had goals kicked on them. Even last week, Nate Caddy in that drubbing still had 7 shots at goal. So they are giving up looks, and I think Waterman's a perfect example. So he kicked 3 goals, 3 in round 1. 1 goal, 3 last week. So I thought he missed out last week. Jake Waterman, so very keen to back him at 3 plus.
He might have only kicked 1 goal last week, Waterman, but he was extremely important for how they were able to play. So I think he's in really good form, and every opportunity, like Brownie says, to have a good day out here on Sunday.
Hey, Hoyney, the Hornet was listening to you. Jason Horne-Francis, he stepped up after you gave him a little bake last week.
Yeah, no, he did. He was impressive, and it was, I think he set the tone, especially in that first 30 minutes there, where the whole game was set up, and he did most of his damage, playing centre forward. And I know Rosie's out this week, and there might be a little bit of talk around, does he actually come back into the midfield at the moment? I don't think that will be the case. I think at the moment, off the back of his limited pre-season, with Ollie Wines coming back in, I would expect Ollie Wines to come back into that midfield and take the Rosie minutes and just, maintain.
Wines can't play anywhere else.
Yeah, he can't. And I would expect just Horne-Francis to be that 50-50 mid forward, and he's. Even throughout his junior career, he was never a high disposal winner. It was more the impact that comes from it, and that's what I wanted to see. And he was able to deliver that on Sunday. So expect him to continue to play that centre forward role.
All right, looking forward to seeing the Hornet go on with it. Also looking forward to Carlton and Melbourne on a Sunday afternoon. Big game for both clubs because I'd say they're both expecting to win this. It's pretty level in the head-to-head betting here, JJ.
It is. I wonder if Melbourne can make this up-tempo like the game in round one against the Saints. I'm really confident head-to-head. This is probably the only head-to-head bet I'd be keen to take all weekend. A lot of the games are pretty one-sided in terms of the market, and it's hard to see an upset from those other teams. Melbourne, if they can get the ball on the outside, if they can move the footy, Stephen King's spoken a lot about wants to be super direct with the way they move the ball. If they can get that ball in there, it mightn't be Van Rooyen this week. It wasn't him last week. If it can be a Fritsch or some of those guys at ground level, the Pickett's doing their thing. I'm keen on Melbourne in this one. All
right, so the D's for you, JJ. I think the total points can go over here. You think back to a couple of weeks ago, Melbourne and St Kilda, it was a shootout at the MCG. I think the D's will be looking to get their offensive game rolling once again like they did there. And the rain in Melbourne should have cleared by this stage. So I think that's a relatively low line for what we can expect here from these two sides. And I think the overs is a really good play on a Sunday.
I'd be going even more specific to that and focusing in on the second half. So, the reality for Carlton is that over the last 18 months, they haven't been able to run out games. They get to a reasonable stage at half time. Melbourne are fit. We know, as JJ said, they play a quick, ballistic game. They're fit. They're going to run out this game. They're going to give themselves some scoring opportunities. So I reckon the second half is where,
hang on,
in particular,
I'm just going to put that on. Melbourne, second half.
Before traders do.
Times have really changed with the game overall because, and look, Melbourne have changed for sure, but this time last year or the year before, that would be the greatest unders bet of all time with those two teams. But it just shows both ways. Melbourne are trying to be more aggressive and keep up with the modern game, but the modern game is demanding if you can't score, you can't play.
So the theory is Carlton Tolstrup probably goes to Sam Walsh being the most dynamic midfielder, which brings me to Paddy Cripps. And look, they're under the pump, Carlton. They did win last week, but I feel like he has to play well, and he gets a fair for one loss, but he has to play well. I thought you might go into his how much he's rating. I don't care how much he's rating. I just know that he's going to get the football, and he's going to get it more than 26 times.
Yeah, and he would want to because his start to the season, for him has been below expectation. 24th highest rated player on the ground against Sydney, 25th against Richmond. So that's not going to get the job done across the course of a season, especially when their most important player in Sam Walsh is likely to get tagged. So if Walsh is getting tagged, and if he has that impact again on this match for a third game this season, I'll struggle to actually find a way in which Carlton can actually get the job done.
I'll put you on the spot, but I know you'll have an answer for me. What specifically, those player ratings in terms of those games, what part of his game has fallen away?
So he's always, he hasn't had the ability to be able to impact matches through his ball use. That's never really been his thing, but he's just been brutal around contest and clearance, and that has dropped by probably 15-20% so far this season. So if he doesn't get back to being that absolute contest and clearance beast, then he's not going to have the impact on matches like he has previously.
Always got the answer. Let's go back 2 weeks when they did play Richmond, and Richmond small forwards dined out. I thought they had more opportunities than you see here. So Layla, Greene and Mansell all kicked 2 goals each, but I thought there was more opportunities in the game than this, and I thought they left a fair bit on the table. And look at Melbourne, who are their small forwards? Well, they've got the very best in the business. They've got Cozzy Pickett, who hasn't been playing as much through the midfield, so 2 goals for Cozzy Pickett. You've got Bailey Fritsch in there. Obviously, he's up and down Fritsch, but I'm happy to back him in. He's keeping Melksham out of the side, which I find surprising, as do you.
Yeah, I do agree with that, Brownie. He's been really good for Casey the last couple of weeks. He's been super for Melbourne the last couple of years. I think Cozzy Pickett's ready to explode. He's been threatening the last couple of weeks without really having huge games, and he's had some huge games against Carlton over the last couple of years.
And they don't really have a matchup for him. Like, if you try and go through Carlton's list in terms of who's going to go to him, at least St Kilda in round one looked at it and go, well, Windhager could potentially do that. There's no one on Carlton's
not at all.
list.
I mean, you can't even think of anyone who could remotely, athletically, that's the key. It's the movement around the ball, it's the concentration around the ball, and then the ability, because Cozzy's going to spit forward quickly to be able to either hand over and get that done, that's not easy, or players are back. So, he's going to be a handful.
One thing I'd just be a little bit careful on in this game as well is if you think Van Rooyen's going to bounce back and have a big game like he did in the first game of the season, he's been a bit of a bad matchup for Jacob Wiedering. Wiedering's really had his measure the last few times they've met, so I'd be just cautious of getting involved with Van Rooyen from a goals perspective.
That might be one of the old Brownie ones that just sit there and just wait to see who Lewis Young goes to. Because if Lewis Young goes to Jacob Van Rooyen, then
Tom Lynch kicked 2-7 on him.
Yeah, so just that one's a really hard one to actually work out.
Yep. All right, so how do we wrap it up with a multi?
Well, let's wrap it up with a multi, and I like Paddy Cripps over, so he's in there. We've also got Cozzy Pickett, who we think might go big, and the Waterman, Jake, over at the West Coast Eagles against Port Adelaide.
Nice. They play a lot better, the Eagles, don't they? We reference the fact that Waterman didn't hit the scoreboard in a big way, but he's a presence. He's not a big man, but he just plays the right way, and they just look a little bit taller when he's in the team, so don't mind the mash-up.
Yep.
The Cozzy one for me, that's the biggest headache for Carlton, and he should really take advantage of that.
Calm the D's.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all over him this week, Matty. Yeah.
Hopefully Cozzy does have a big game, and we enjoy what should be a good game of footy at the MCG. Both teams will be expecting to get the 4 points. We'll catch you next week on In the Back Pocket.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.